She betrayed me after years of love, and now she wants me back, but I'm done. Hey there, this story has already been covered on my channel before, but there is new updates. Wife confessed to drunk cheating. I turned into a robot and kicked her out. She tried everything to win me back, even offering 3M's, but I chose divorce. I, 32M, have been married to my wife Kate, 30F, for 4 years, together for 9. Our relationship has been amazing, loving and supportive. We have good communication, hardly ever argue, and our bedroom life has gone from strength to strength over the years. We discussed cheating in the past, and I was always clear that we would be over if it ever happened. Kate went home to visit her family last weekend, which was fairly normal. Before she left on the Friday night, we had a minor argument about keeping the house tidy, so our communication was limited on Saturday, but I knew she was going out to meet some friends at a bar. I trusted her 100%, so didn't think anything of it. Before I fell asleep, I texted her saying that I hope she had a nice night. When I woke up on Sunday morning, I had a missed call from Kate at 4 a.m., so I immediately called her to check if she was okay, but no answer. After a few hours, I tried again a few times, but still no answer. Around an hour later, I got a message saying she was fine and was driving back soon. Kate got home late afternoon and looked awful. She had clearly been crying, was not wearing any makeup, unusual for her, and looked like a shell of a person. I knew right away something was wrong, but she wouldn't let me hug her and would barely speak. I sat her down on the couch and made her some tea. I gently encouraged her to tell me what was wrong, and she burst into uncontrollable tears for at least 10 minutes while I was trying to comfort her. She then proceeded to tell me, stopping every few words, that she had slept with someone last night after the bar. At that moment, something in my brain broke. I can't describe it any other way. I immediately got up and jumped in my car and drove off. I went to a park and walked around it for about an hour. Kate was calling my phone constantly and I turned it off. When I got home, I grabbed 2 suitcases from the garage and went to our bedroom. I threw some of Kate's clothes and shoes into them and left them by the front door. Kate was lying on the floor in the living room, curled up into a ball, sobbing. I called her best friend who lives nearby and told her that Kate needed a place to stay and a ride to her place, and that Kate could explain everything to her later. I told Kate I was leaving for an hour and that her friend was coming to pick her up. She grabbed onto my legs, trying to stop me from leaving. When I returned home again, Kate was gone and so were the cases. On Monday, with a clearer head, I answered one of Kate's many calls and told her that I needed her to send me an email with as much details as possible of that night, and if she leaves anything out, there will be no hope of reconciliation. I received this email on Monday night but still haven't opened it. Since then, everyone has been trying to contact me, but I have just been working, exercising, and sleeping. One of her friends turned up at my house with an attitude demanding an explanation. I told her to speak to Kate and closed the door in her face. I have also been speaking to divorce lawyers, have moved money into separate accounts and blocked Kate and all of her friends on everything. Everything I have done since I found out seems like I have been on autopilot. I don't feel angry, upset, or overly emotional. Just numb. Kate posted a note through the door yesterday asking me to meet tomorrow, but I'm conflicted. Should I meet her? Will it change anything? Is there any point in trying to reconcile? Is it normal to feel like a robot, and how do I snap out of this? Edit. Just to add that when I came home the first time, Kate confirmed it was consensual. She was drunk, but knew what she was doing. Update. After reading your comments, I decided to meet with Kate, but not read the email. Kate came to the house yesterday, and when I opened the door, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me and started mumbling apologies, but I stopped her, and we sat down to talk. I started by telling Kate that I would be recording the audio of the conversation, and she agreed. I then asked her to explain what happened, and told her that I haven't read the email she sent. Kate said she had been at the bar with 2 friends. I know and like both of them, and told me what she had to drink. I was surprised at how little she drank because it was the same amount we would normally drink when going for dinner, a few glasses of wine and a cocktail. She admitted she was only slightly tipsy. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother, Max, 27M, who came to pick them up around midnight. It's a running joke in their group that Max has had major crush on Kate since high school, and I had heard them joke about this. The 4 of them went to get some food, and Max then dropped each one off until it was just him and Kate. Kate said she didn't want him to drive the 20 minutes to her parents' place after working all day, so would just order an Uber from his apartment. She went into his apartment to order the Uber but couldn't get one. Max suggested she should crash in his bed, and he would take the sofa. He would then drop her off in the morning. Kate refused and continued to try to find an Uber. They were sitting on Max's bed and he kissed her. She kissed him back and they ended up having sex. After that, she broke down crying from guilt and Max took her home. She cried for another hour, then tried to call me to tell me what she had done. We had to stop a number of times because Kate kept breaking down and crying hysterically. She told me it was a huge mistake. She got caught up in the moment. It was terrible. She only loves me blah blah blah. After she was done, I told her that her story didn't make sense, but it didn't matter at this stage because I was done. This caused another breakdown. I told her I was going to continue with the divorce preparations, but for the next month we would be separated with no contact. I also told her that we would both remain faithful, would get a full STD panel, and she would tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she sticks to these conditions, I would be willing to meet again to see if there was any way forward other than divorce. She enthusiastically agreed to this, but made it clear that she did not expect me to stay faithful to her. I know many of you will criticize this decision, but I need to be sure that divorce is the right option after I have had time to process everything that has happened. I am still 99% sure that is where we are heading, but I need to be 100% certain. Update 2. A few things have happened in the last week, so I thought I would make an update post if anyone is interested. First of all, I'm not in robot mode anymore. I have been having bursts of intense feelings of anger and betrayal, but have been keeping busy with work and exercise. My friends have also been great since they found out and have been dragging me out of the house to hang out. I decided to read the email and wish I hadn't. The story Kate told in the email was mostly the same, but there was no mention of going into Max's apartment to order an Uber. There were also pretty explicit details of what they did, for how long, and that they had apparently used a condom. I will never be able to forget this description. Many people who were originally criticizing me for kicking Kate out of the house have now apologized, but they can keep it. Kate's parents reached out to apologize, and I spoke to them because we had a good relationship before all of this. They begged me to try to work it out, but said they understood if I decided to get divorced. I didn't commit to either option. Kate's other friend that was there that night contacted me to tell me her side of the story. It mostly matched up, bar food home. She said Kate could stay over at her house, but she refused, saying she was driving home early the next morning. Max apparently insisted that he would take Kate home. The version of the story that she told didn't mention Kate trying to get an Uber, only that Max invited her in and she accepted. I asked her if she had ever suspected anything before, and she told me that about a year ago, she went to meet Kate for coffee but found Max sitting with her when she arrived. Apparently Kate looked guilty, but when asked about it she said they just met by chance. Sarah, Max's sister, also reached out to me, and I spoke to her too. She was angry with both Max and Kate and told me a similar story. Apparently her whole family are angry with Max, and she had not spoken to Kate since she found out. She apologized on behalf of her idiot brother and said she had warned him to stay away from Kate since high school. She didn't think anything else had happened between them. I have had zero contact from Kate, but heard that she was going to be moving into an Airbnb near our house. Apparently she is not coping well and called in sick from work a few times over the last few weeks. She does have support from the friend she is currently living with, and I asked her parents to keep an eye on her. Her parents came up to see her this past weekend. I went out with some friends at the weekend and ended up drunk at a bar. I was talking to a girl there who I probably could have gone home with, but I stopped myself because I wanted to keep my self-respect. Reading the email and hearing what they had done made me give up hope of repairing this, especially when I know she is not being truthful with me on other things, so who knows. I will be moving ahead with the divorce and might not even wait a month before telling Kate that this is my final decision. Update 3. I debated posting this update, but a lot of people seem to be invested in this mess, so here it is. Apologies in advance if this is TMI. Kate sent me an email last week asking to pick up some things she needed for work. My lawyer told me not to prevent her from having access to the house or her possessions, so I reluctantly agreed that she could come over on Thursday night when I would be at the gym. I told her to be out by 7:30, but when I got home at 8 she was still there. When I walked in, she had left a few work-related items next to the stairs, and she was chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked amazing with her hair and makeup done, wearing one of the dresses I like. The whole place had been tidied and cleaned. I calmly asked her to leave immediately, and she made her way to the door but stopped and asked if we could speak. I should have said no, but I eventually agreed. We sat down and had a conversation for around an hour, which jumped from topic to topic. Again, I told her I would record the audio and she agreed. I started by asking her if she had kept her side of the agreement we made the last time we spoke. She said she had taken an STI test which was all negative. Mine was too, thankfully, and a pregnancy test which was negative. She hadn't been with anyone else, and also told a few friends and family what happened, and many of them were angry and were not speaking to her. I asked a lot of questions that had been turning over in my mind for the last few weeks. She confirmed that her reason for going into Max's apartment, the Uber story, was BS, and she said he invited her in for a drink, and she agreed, knowing at some level that something was going to happen. She can't explain why she did this other than being selfish and enjoying the attention. She also confirmed that she had texted with Max a few times over the years because he would shower her with compliments, and make her feel good. He would always initiate, and she was apparently careful not to lead him on, and said she had never sent him explicit messages or pictures. Kate also told me that they had hooked up about 6 months before we got together but never had sex. She admitted that she was always a bit curious. Her story about being caught at the coffee shop was that Max had texted her asking what she was up to, and she had told him where she was. He then turned up. She swore this was the first time they had ever done anything since we had been together. She said there was nothing missing in our relationship, and she hates herself for ruining her perfect marriage and causing me so much pain. I told her that I still don't believe her story and that there was no point in continuing the conversation. She calmly asked what she would need to do to make this right, offering up her phone, location sharing, not going out without me, etc. She had clearly been doing some research. I said that I had no plans to become her prison guard, especially when I would never get over the betrayal. Things then took an unexpected turn which caught me completely off guard. She asked me to turn off the audio recording because she had something private she wanted to discuss and didn't want other people hearing it. I refused, and she reluctantly continued. She asked if I had been involved with anyone else sexually since all of this happened, making it clear she was fine with it. I told her no, and she said that I must be going crazy. We used to have sex almost daily, and started talking dirty about all of the things I could do with and to her. This involved a lot of kinky things that I had wanted to try or had only done a few times. She said she wanted to meet my needs, even if we did not get back together. She said we could have as many threesomes as I wanted from now on, or we could be open on my side only, and she would even find partners for us/me. She was trying very hard to turn me on, and I stayed silent until she asked who I wanted to have a threesome with. For some reason, I mentioned the name of her co-worker who is 5 years younger than Kate, and a total knockout. This surprised her, but she was in too deep and asked me what I wanted to do with her. I went into detail about a pretty hardcore scenario, and Kate was encouraging me until I said that she would just be watching. This again caught her off guard, but she went along with it. Later on, I realized that I only said all of this as a petty attempt to hurt Kate, which I don't feel good about. She was obviously convinced that her plan was working, so she pulled up her dress and got into my favorite position on the couch, begging me to have sex with her. I'll admit that for a few seconds my body reacted, even though my head was not in the game. Everything suddenly came into focus, and the content of her email came flooding into my head. I can't explain why, but I started to laugh. Not just a chuckle, but a full-on belly laugh. She looked hurt and moved away, then started to cry. I told her it was time for her to go, and she left quickly, probably due to the embarrassment. I also said she needed to hurry up and get a lawyer because we are getting divorced. The post-nut clarity after she left confirmed that I had dodged a bullet. I have a meeting with my lawyer later this week and want to move forward with the divorce as quickly as possible. Final update. Thought I would provide a final update on the situation for anyone that is interested. The last few months have been tough, and I have only seen Kate in person a handful of times. After a few weeks of no contact, I decided that we should discuss things with a clearer head. We went for lunch and had a calm, respectful conversation about everything that had happened and what reconciliation might look like. Kate said she would do anything to get things back on track, and I believe her but didn't commit to anything. After that, Kate asked me to go with her to see her therapist, who is also experienced in dealing with married couples. I thought about it for a few days before agreeing. The session was tough with a lot of tears, but I didn't get a straight answer on why Kate had decided to cheat. The therapist was surprisingly fair to both of us and was not judgmental. We again discussed reconciliation, but I told her that I thought it was best to proceed with the divorce. Last week, I drove up to her parents' house to drop off some tools I had borrowed from her dad. We had arranged for Kate to be there and for her parents to go out for a few hours to give us a chance to talk. I spoke with her parents alone, who were heartbroken, which was hard, but they were both very supportive. During the conversation with Kate, I told her clearly that I had given it a lot of thought, but I wanted to move ahead with the divorce. It came down to the fact that, in my view, we would never get back to where we were, and I realistically can't see myself ever getting over the betrayal. Even if we could regain the trust, it could take a decade of hard work, and that is too big of a risk for me. Kate finally accepted this, and we had calm discussion about how we would divide assets, sell the house, etc., and wrote an email to our respective lawyers. We left each other on good terms. The divorce should be finalized by the end of the year, and the house will be put up for sale soon. In the meantime, we will go no contact and agreed not to start dating until everything is finalized. I have had a few casual hookups, and it feels strange to be going back to being single after all this time. I have been hitting the gym, spending a lot of time with friends and family, and getting back into my hobbies. I'm optimistic about the future, and although I'm still devastated by the loss of my marriage, I feel that this has made me grow as a person, thanks to those of you who have offered advice and support. Second story. Wife cheated on me with a guy she told me not to worry about. I found out by checking her phone after I got suspicious. I never imagined I'd be sharing my personal struggles online, but here I am. I'm not just venting. I want to show others that even when your world crumbles, there can be light at the end of the tunnel. My name's Tom, and I'm just an average guy working as a software developer. But this story isn't really about me. It's about my ex-wife Sarah and how her actions turned my life upside down. Sarah and I met through mutual friends about 8 years ago. She worked as a realtor and was incredibly passionate about her career. I admired her drive and dedication to her clients. Sarah had this infectious energy, always on the go, always working to improve things for us. She made you feel like anything was possible if you put in the effort. I remember joking when we first met that I'd trust her to help me buy a house, and probably a lot more too. She asked if I meant it, and I said yes. We went on our first date to the movies, and she enthusiastically told me all about her favorite films. Conversation flowed so naturally with Sarah that I fell for her quickly. I don't believe in love at first sight, but she came pretty close to making me a believer back then. When we started dating, I knew Sarah had a demanding schedule. Real estate is a tough business with long, unpredictable hours. But I was supportive of her career, which she appreciated. We made a good team, me with my steady 9-to-5 job, and her with her more variable schedule. I didn't mind, because I knew she loved what she did, and I loved her. There was one thing that bothered me early on though. Sarah got pretty close with a colleague of hers, who I'll call Mike. Mike worked at the same real estate firm, and they seemed to spend a lot of time together. At first I didn't think much of it. They were co-workers after all. But as time went on, I noticed their work meetings becoming more and more frequent. Sarah would often talk about Mike in a way that felt off to me. I'm not typically a jealous person. In fact, I'm the opposite. I wanted Sarah to have the freedom to pursue her career goals. But something about how she'd take Mike's calls, even during our date nights, really got under my skin. I'd make the occasional comment about how she acted like she was in love with Mike. Sarah would get defensive and snap back at me. But looking back, I wonder if that was more of a guilty reaction than just playful teasing. I brought it up casually once, just to get a read on the situation. You and Mike seem pretty close, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Sarah laughed it off. Oh, Tom, it's nothing. We just work well together. You don't need to worry about it. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something still felt off. Still, I didn't push the issue. We were happy, and I didn't want to create problems over what might be nothing. Eventually, Sarah and Mike started spending less time together after he transferred to a new department. Sarah joked that she was sad to see him go. I joked back that now she was all mine instead of Mike's. But part of me wonders now if that was really a joke after all. A few years into our relationship, I proposed and Sarah said yes. We got married, bought a house together, and soon after had a beautiful baby girl. Life seemed good. Sure, Sarah was still busy with work, but I figured that came with the territory of being married to someone with a demanding career. Our daughter Lily became the center of our world, and for a while, everything felt perfect. But then Mike started appearing in the picture again. It wasn't constant, but often enough that I noticed. Sarah would casually mention running into him at the office or collaborating on a deal. I told myself it was nothing. After all, we'd been married for years and had a child together. Surely she wouldn't jeopardize all that for some work fling, right? Sarah mentioned one day that Mike had transferred back to their office, something about them needing more staff at that branch. I asked if it would impact her work. Sarah got defensive and insisted nothing was going on. I believed her at the time. She said Mike had recently broken up with his girlfriend, but maintained they just worked well as a team closing deals. About a year ago, things started to change. Sarah began spending more and more time at the office. She'd come home late, claiming she had to stay for closings or client meetings. At first, I didn't question it. This was normal in her line of work, and I knew how stressful the real estate market could be. But as the late nights became more frequent, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I started paying closer attention and noticed little things. How she'd suddenly get a text and smile at her phone. How she'd go out of her way to mention how busy Mike was lately. It all seemed too coincidental. Sarah also became less affectionate. We had busy lives and a child, but I noticed she'd often go to bed without even a goodnight kiss. When I'd hug her, she'd tense up before hugging back. Something felt very wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but suspicion began eating away at me. One night after Sarah came home late again, I decided I had to know for sure. I'm not proud of it, but I went through her phone while she was in the shower. Sure enough, I found flirty text messages between her and Mike, way too intimate for just coworkers. There were vague plans to meet up at odd hours under the guise of showings and client meetings. The final straw was when I checked her location history. I found she'd been going to an address that wasn't listed on any of her recent deals, an address that happened to be Mike's. She'd been lying to me for months, sneaking off to hook up with him while I was at home taking care of our daughter. I was furious. I had no idea how to confront Sarah without completely losing it. So I hatched a plan. I decided to pose as a potential buyer and set up a showing with Sarah and Mike. I wanted to catch them in the act, not just for my own closure, but to make Sarah face the consequences of her actions. I called their office pretending to be interested in a house Sarah and Mike were co-listing. I set up an appointment for a private showing, and they both agreed to meet me there. On the day of the showing, I arrived early and waited in my car. I watched as Sarah and Mike pulled up together, laughing and looking far too comfortable with each other. Then I saw it. They kissed. Right there in broad daylight. Sarah wasn't even wearing her wedding ring. It told me everything about how little she valued our marriage outside of our home. I wanted to run away and forget what I'd seen. But I knew I had to go through with my plan, for my own sake. I got out of the car and approached them. The look on Sarah's face when she saw me was priceless. She froze and Mike went pale. They knew exactly why I was there. I didn't even have to say anything, but I did. I told Sarah that if she wanted to throw away everything we had, she could. She tried to stammer out an excuse, but I wasn't having it. I turned and walked away, leaving them both standing there speechless. That night, I packed up Sarah's things and told her to leave. I wasn't going to let her continue disrespecting me and our marriage while living under the same roof. I kept Lily with me. There was no way I was letting Sarah take her after everything she'd done. The divorce process was brutal. Sarah tried to play the victim, claiming I was overreacting and that it was just a mistake, but I had all the evidence I needed. In the end, I got full custody of Lily. Sarah was left with nothing but the consequences of her own actions. As for Mike, karma caught up with him too. Turns out he was married and cheating on his wife with Sarah. When Mike's wife found out, she filed for divorce as well. Mike ended up losing his family and his reputation. It's been a tough road, but I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. Lily is my world now, and I'm doing everything I can to give her the best life possible. Being a single dad isn't easy, but I've got a great support system of family and friends. We're making it work. This is my story. It's still painful to think about, to remember how much it hurt to discover that after all the years and hard work I'd put into our relationship, Sarah could hurt me like that. The thought of it still stings. But I'm finally able to move forward,